Mock review, we did the Jan 212 paper, mean is 14.83. Question 1 relates to factors of production. Which of the following is classified as an economic resource? Obviously in this. Question 2. Diagram below shows production possibility frontier for an economy with public goods and private goods on the axis. So the economy is operating on its production possibility frontier. An increase in production of public goods will, and then because you're on the curve, basically it means that increase in production of one good must mean a decrease in production of the other. It's the opportunity cost scenario. Quite clearly B is the right answer in this particular case. Okay, one with a longer stem, tensor and strange context, which are often misleading, but try and look at the underlying economics. OPEC is expected to cut output of crude oil by more than 1 million barrels per day when it meets in Vienna this week. The cut is intended to maintain the high world price of oil. All other things being equal, if output of crude oil was cut in such a way, which one of the following would happen to the world market for crude oil? There would be A, and here we're looking at, this is one where we should look to visualize what's happening. So I'll add a diagram that you'll see basically, which will show Question 4, the diagram below shows the demand for and supply of butter in a country. We're kind of thinking buffer stock straight away, I would imagine, but let's see what we got. The government of the country decides that domestic farmer will receive a minimum price for butter produced at £15 per unit and arranges to sell the surplus butter to foreign buyers at £5 per unit. The cost of this scheme to the government will be... and here you've got to work things out, okay? Question 5, onto elasticity, not a popular topic. Again, it doesn't get any easier than this one really. I mean, a straightforward definition. This is what you would be expected to do for 5 marks on a data response if the term came up. Price elasticity supply measures the responsiveness of quantity supplied to a change in price. Complete market failure always exists when, again, this inexact science of economics, what is obvious terminology to the board is not always obvious terminology to the student. This idea of reading through and seeing when there is a no, there's an obvious answer really. In this case, it's the idea of missing markets, public goods. Left to the market, the public simply doesn't provide them. Therefore, it is a complete market failure. In terms of negative externalities and merit goods and demerit goods, there's some market provision, even though it's not an efficient market provision. So the answer in this case, question 7, specialization requires the existence of, this is a question that's come up a number of times. Obviously, if you're specializing, you're creating surpluses. If you're creating Question 8. In an economy, some industries are dominated by a few large firms. Which of the following is most likely to explain this situation? In the economy, and then you've got a range of options. In this particular case, the answer is C. As firms increase their size, the employment of specialist managers may result in a fall in average costs of running a business. Quite clearly, it's fairly limited, the consideration of monopolies within Econ 1. It's really either going to link to price being high, output being low, or the existence of economies of scale. So here we can see economies of scale are the source of a barrier to entry. Okay, question 9. Which of the following would lead to an increase in equilibrium price? This is one where it's better to sketch out something. Okay, question 10. Read it carefully, focus on what it's trying to tell you. The markets are initially in equilibrium P1, Q1. Supply, good X increases and both markets move to a new equilibrium P2, Q2. So basically we see an increase in supply and a fall in price for good X, which leads to a fall in demand for good Y. And that suggests the substitute relationship. So quite clearly in this case, competitive demand is another term for substitute demand, which makes it answer A. Question 11. Which one of the following measures of elasticity indicate that two goods are substitutes? You're looking straight away for cross-price elasticity of demand. That's what a good student knows. It investigates the relationship between two different goods. So that clearly makes the answer C straight away. The income elasticity of demand for good is -3. Which of the following statements is correct? Remember, income elasticity minus sign indicates an inferior good. Again, looking at the options open to you, you're looking for something where an increase in income leads to a fall in quantity demanded, or the opposite really. So A is quite clearly the right answer in this case, because the change in income, it brings about a 3 times change in quantity, which is the 3 relationship we're looking for. Again, the best thing is to sketch out the equation, and if you need to. Question 13. Again, a long stem and a strange context, but if you just focus on the fact that electricity generators are paying more, and the reason because of that is scarcity, and the reason for that is scarcity, then you'll get to the right answer, which is basically D. A and C, subsidies not mentioned. B could be, but not from the data given, so D is the only one that links the two together. Government intervention to correct market failure may make the situation worse because. So if we're looking for explanations of government failure. They usually come from administration costs, imperfect information, political bias. So we're looking for that kind of thing, and obviously A is the one that points us in that direction. Information needed to make sound economic decisions is widely dispersed amongst individuals and firms, which means it's costly and time consuming to collect. Which means governments tend to make decisions based on limited information, which can result in unintended consequences and government failure. Getting along stem and diagrams, that's one that's going to catch a lot of students out. Context, European steel decline, production decline following big reduction in demand, so it's a fall in demand for steel. Production of steel-containing goods manufacturers has fallen because of tough global competition. Which of the diagrams A, B, C or D best illustrates the reason given? So again, think demand side, supply side. Think for an explanation. And there's only really one factor there, and that's a decrease in the demand. Remember, decreases shifts to the left, increases to the right, so we're looking for a shift to the left, D1 to D2, which can be seen in diagram D. Positive statement. Usually the first question on a paper. I don't know what it's doing down at number 17, but you're looking for something that's capable of being tested. Straightforward. A. Demand and supply. Cross price elasticity of demand for Y with respect to X. Okay, so again, write your equation out and work it out from there. Government provision of a merit good can be justified because, think definition of merit good, think combination of underestimation of private benefit and positive externalities of consumption. So the only one that fits in with this, without government intervention, partial market failure would result. I mean, merit goods are provided, or things like education and health are provided by the private sector, but not in sufficient quantity. So that's the partial market failure. So it points you towards C as the correct answer. 20. All points on a country's production possibility frontier, productive efficiency is achieved. Here we have a demand and supply with an indirect tax, so that's a supply side tax causing a decrease in supply S to S1 to S2. Parallel shift, specific tax, that's the same amount per unit. We have to identify tax revenue. Thing to remember is vertical distance between the two curves at the new equilibrium represents the tax per unit. That gives us H and K as a tax per unit times by the number of units being taxed. So it gives us a square area EGHK. A good is excludable if it is possible to prevent someone from enjoying its benefits. In a typical demand schedule, the quantity demanded varies inversely with price. It's simply the downward sloping nature of the demand curve. Externalities diagram. You can see quite clearly here you've got a combination of negative and positive externalities. Remember that added complication about supply side production, demand side consumption that the AQA is keen on. Here it just introduces, the first paragraph just introduces the curves and optimal output. I mean, you're simply looking for a position where social cost is equal to social benefit. In this case it would be an output level of OX. Last question. Combination of example and policy is most likely to be consistent with the source of market failure identified. Getting more popular these days, combination questions. Just look at the market failure, look at the policy intervention and see which ones match up really. In this case, D is the one that stands out. You've got negative production externality. Electricity generation is the act of creation of electricity, therefore it's a production act. And the pollution permits we know is a way of internalizing the externality by creating a market for carbon emissions. So those will match up and make sense.